This week on the Wake and Bake podcast.
So we're going to Mexico. Mexico recently legalized, and so I was like, well, maybe they'll have something down there. But their system is nowhere close to being set up. I instantly found this CBD shop, and it was like, buy your Delta 8. And I was like, oh, shit, gross. And then I was like, oh man, this is all there is for people.
I can't believe you just said you're going to have a different perspective about Delta 8.
The point of the Farm Bill is to keep prohibition alive and well and to keep your guys' fucking pockets lined, to keep people in jail and all that shit.
The cool thing about cannabis is for many people, it's the gateway drug into herbalism, environmentalism, alternative medicine,
collective consciousness, being a dirtbag hippie, joining a commune,
moving to Mexico.
I didn't know that. This episode of the Wake and Bake podcast is brought to you by Wake and Bake Hemp Co. Look, I know how overwhelming it can be to choose a CBD or hemp product that works because I've been there. Now, with hundreds of new CBD products hitting the market every day, it's even more overwhelming. At Wake and Bake Hemp Co, we did the research for you so you can skip the confusion and enjoy more calm, less tension, and better sleep. Visit wakeandbakehemp.co and check out our best sellers like our hemp-derived THC gummies, our CBD massage oil that doubles as a CBD lube, and Wake and Bark, our pet formula. We only source organic and natural ingredients, and every batch is lab tested. You can check the results of the lab tests by using the QR code right on the back of the label. And because you're a podcast listener, you can use the code Wake and Bake for 10% off your entire order. Visit wakeandbakehemp.co to learn more and let us know if you have any questions. We're here to help.
In this episode of the Wake and Bake podcast, we are discussing Delta 8. Maybe you've heard about this brand new cannabinoid on the market and you're wondering if you should give it a try. I don't want to cause a spoiler alert up front, but we definitely don't think that you should give it a try. We dive deep into the world of Delta 8 in this episode, and what we share with you will probably scare you. So we apologize in advance. I'm Andrea Maharg, Certified Cannabis Coach and Educator, and along with my co-host, Corinne Tobias, we are here to tell you about the stories and the science behind everything cannabis. Thanks for tuning in.
I was actually ready to come in here and talk a whole bunch of shit about this one in particular. And this thing happened to me last night, and it was one of those moments again where I was like, I'm getting a different perspective on this particular topic, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts about it.
I can't believe you just said you're going to have a different perspective about Delta 8.
So we're going to Mexico. And if you listen to our breakup podcast, one of the ways that I decided to deal with that breakup was to book my daughter and I a month in Mexico, just run away from it all. It was a really impulsive decision. And one of the things in all the planning that I had to think about was not having cannabis. Mexico recently legalized, and so I was like, well, maybe they'll have something down there. But their system is nowhere close to being set up. There's nothing down there. And when I started Googling, I was like, well, what do I have access to down there? What do people have access to in the legal Mexican market? And I instantly found this CBD shop, and it was like, buy your Delta 8. And I was like, oh, shit, gross, this is gross. And then I was like, oh man, this is like all there is for people in a lot of the United States, up until the hemp-derived THC gummies and that kind of thing, which people still don't know about. Delta 8 was their only way to experience some of the benefits of THC. And so I want to approach this episode with, should I just take a tea break in Mexico and bite the bullet, or is Delta 8 something to explore?
No, you should take a tolerance break. Sorry. So let's start with, what is Delta 8 THC? It is a molecule that is almost identical to Delta 9 THC, which is the molecule that we've been calling THC forever. It's only super recently, like in the past couple of years, that we've had to start differentiating between the THC we all know and love, which is Delta 9, and this new cannabinoid on the market. Delta 8 does show up naturally in very small amounts in naturally growing cannabis. In fact, it's a degradation product of Delta 9. So if you have a really precise lab test on your cannabis, you might see little traces of Delta 8 in there. But the stuff that you are seeing on the market, no matter where you are, including Mexico, is not from a plant. All of this Delta 8 THC is made in a lab. Around here at CCI, we call them Franken-cannabinoids. They're also known as alternative cannabinoids or synthetic cannabinoids, and they're all gross.
So I've never taken Delta 8 before. I've had no need to. I have access to THC here in Colorado. And I'm curious about what it would do. Would it do the same thing for me as THC? Is it going to help me sleep? Is it going to help with my pain? Is it going to help with inflammation?
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of human studies on it yet, but in general, people call it like THC light. So people do report that they have effects on things like pain and sleep and depression, mood, stress.
I want to know what it's doing in the human body. I want to know why people are taking it. What is it going to do if I go and find a corner store and buy a Delta 8 vape pen? What's going to happen for me?
Because the actual molecule is so similar to Delta 9 THC, it has very similar effects. So Delta 8 THC is said to be about half to 2/3 as psychoactive as Delta 9. I don't know, that's like a hard thing to measure. But in general, when you take Delta 8, you'll feel less high than you would with Delta 9. There have been studies done on Delta 8 itself. Again, it's a natural product in cannabis, and cannabis researchers love to play around with these molecules that they make. So it's been studied for things like cancer, glaucoma, pain, nausea, inflammation. But all of the studies that have been done, with the exception of one, have been done in animal models. And we know with lots of certainty that the studies that are done on rats and mice don't necessarily translate well into humans. So we don't really know. But if you're suffering from pain or depression, or you need some help with sleep, maybe a molecule really close to Delta 9, the Delta 8 molecule, might be able to help. You would just experiment the same way that you would with regular cannabis if you're going to give it a try.
All right. So what's so nasty about it? What's so nasty about how it's made? Because we've talked about CBD isolates before, and you've said, and I quote, "I'll take that in a pinch," right? So what's the difference between a CBD isolate and taking a Delta 8 product?
We have to start with why Delta 8 is here. The reason why Delta 8 is on the market, and this goes for other cannabinoids that you're going to be hearing about too. There's Delta 10 THC, there's Delta 6 THC, there's HHC, there's THCO acetate, all these new ones that you're hearing about. The only reason why they're here is because the US has been in a state of prohibition for 100 years due to lies, racism, and greed. And when the Farm Bill passed in 2018 and legalized CBD, very smart, enterprising entrepreneurs realized that pretty simply, actually, you can take CBD isolate and bathe it in certain chemicals and acids and have the structure of the molecule rearrange itself into Delta 8 THC or Delta 6 or Delta 10. They are proposing it as a legal source of THC because it actually comes from CBD, which is totally legal. But it's gross how they're making it. They bathe it in all this stuff. And then you hope as a consumer that they have done the processes to make this product like come out just with Delta 8 in it, but you have no idea. And because you're purchasing Delta 8 only in illegal markets, it's most likely with processors who are not keeping your best interests as a consumer focused on health in mind. So sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's not that I haven't heard this before. I'm just kind of like, is there a way, is there a safe version? Because what you said is like, you hope that they pull all of it out. What we know about that in terms of the consumer reporting testing that's been done already is that they're not doing that, and that it still has Delta 9 in it, making it an illegal product in most of these marketplaces. It still has heavy metals in it. It still has solvents in it. I would say many of these Delta 8 products still have these contaminants inside of them. Is that Is that a fair assumption?
I don't think we know because we're not doing rigorous testing on these products. The problem for me isn't even necessarily whether the processors have done a great job of getting all the stuff out, but most of the Delta 8 that you're going to find on the market is in vape pens. So they've concentrated the Delta 8 and whatever else was in that mixture down into an oil that you vape into your lungs. I am super anti vape pens in general, but vape pens that have this cannabinoid that we have made and hoped for the best with, that's bonkers. The other way that they're getting Delta 8 into the market, and this is my favorite because they're like pretending it's healthy, is they spray it onto CBD rich hemp flower. And then again, what are you going to go do with that? You're going to go roll that into a joint or put it into your bowl and smoke it. So if you're looking for Delta 8, if you're like, my God, I really want to try it, it's the only thing that's available to me, you do have some strategies to help make that a better choice. And that would be, first of all, find a product that you can eat so that you're allowing your digestive system to, take care of some of the nasties. And two, do your research. See if you can find a place near you that is doing Delta 8 right, like they have actual lab tests that you can trust. But outside of taking those two precautions, I would avoid it like completely everywhere.
When you said that thing about the FDA saying, well, that's not the point of the farm bill. I was like, yeah, the point of the farm bill is to keep prohibition alive and well and to keep your guys' pockets lined, to keep people in jail and all of that. So like, fuck your farm bill. And I've never been mad about the farm bill before, but I was like, stupid farm bill.
So many unforeseen consequences from that decision because we've known forever that you can make all these other cannabinoids out of CBD. Like this wasn't something new that was discovered in 2018. We could have looked back in the scientific literature and seen that, somebody's going to read this and know how to do it. The instructions were there.
I didn't know that. I thought that they were like, oh, we've got this thing. Let's play with this stuff. Let's see hey, you got any Lewis acid for me? Like, let's just see what happens.
Another question I have is, okay, we don't know what's in it. If I eat it, I might be ingesting heavy metals and all sorts of other Narnia. If I smoke it, I'm definitely ingesting those kinds of things in like a vape pen, right? Or sprayed on a CBD flower. Can it make me acutely sick? Can this make me sick? Like would I know like, oh, I had Delta 8 and it was bad because I feel sick?
I don't think so. Unless you're super sensitive to THC and like a small dose of THC in general triggers your nausea, for example. But no, it would generally be something that we would be looking for long-term over studies that we do not have about what's happening to the hundreds of thousands of people who are using oil-based vape pens into their lungs. And again, I'm not 100% it's the Delta 8 itself that would be causing the problem. It's the fact that we're vaping oil into our lungs.
And whatever else. You're vaping oil and whatever else is in there. Okay. So I guess my next question is this even really legal? So if I were to get one of these vape pens in Mexico and get pulled over by the police, or if I were to go to a prohibition state and have one and be like, it's a hemp product, is it really legal? Is there a defense for that?
Two ways to think about this. One is that, again, because this is a product made from CBD, then it's totally legal because CBD is legal. The flip side of this is that even the FDA just came out recently and said anything that looks like Delta 9 THC is also illegal. And many states, about a dozen, have already taken Delta 8 off their books. It came and then it went.
I mean, obviously, the thing about this conversation is it's bullshit because cannabis is legal in Mexico, but you have no access to it. Cannabis should be legal here in the United States. You guys don't have this problem up in Canada.
No, that's the really interesting thing is for so long I was on my high horse about how in our lovely regulated system, we don't have Delta 8 because we don't need it. We have Delta 9, which is the one that we all know and love. And we have so many studies and so much anecdotal evidence for thousands and thousands of years that it works. But we are super influenced by your media, your culture. And so now we have Delta 8 products on our shelves, if you can believe it, because people hear about it and then they want to freaking try it. Plus, if Canadian producers have a surplus of CBD or CBD isolate, how awesome is it to just bathe it in some acid and put it out as Delta 8 and have it fly off the shelves?
That's insane that there's a market for Delta 8 in a legal marketplace? Why would someone choose a Delta 8 product over a Delta 9 product in a legal marketplace?
Just because they've heard about Delta 8 somewhere, they've read or heard like, oh, this is THC light. I hear it called THC light a lot. So maybe you want to like give it to your friend who's not that interested in cannabis. But most of our decisions, our purchasing decisions here in Canada are made by what the producers and corporate cannabis think that we want, not necessarily is it healthy, it's will it sell. And if Delta 8 is going to sell, then they're going to put it on the market.
So my choices are untested black market Mexican cannabis, Delta 8, or a tolerance break. When we travel with my daughter, I'll take the tea break. You don't mind. It'll be interesting to see how my body does react to that and what happens because I don't take huge doses anyway, if there's like a big noticeable difference for me.
That's what I was going to say, is that you're in a lucky place personally that you don't need THC to be able to go to Mexico and enjoy yourself. Without THC, you can still go about your life. But for some people, that wouldn't be possible. They couldn't travel to Mexico because cannabis is a medicine that they need to take on the daily. So the faster we can do this work of having all of North America and then sweep the world to allow people access to a freaking plant, the better.
We'll see. I don't know if I'm going to sleep for 28 days. That's I'm scared. That's why I'm like, it's Delta 8, please just lie to me, Andrew. Whatever, so I can sleep. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Andrew. I really appreciate you walking us through all that.
Yeah, it's been fun to talk about these cannabinoids, and I obviously have very strong opinions on them.
Good. Keep those strong opinions. I'll be strong in Mexico.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Wake and Bake podcast. Please reach out and tell us your thoughts on Delta 8. Did we miss the mark? Are you in love with it? Does it scare the crap out of you too? Thanks for letting us know wherever you're listening or watching. And if this topic has you fired up and you want the whole world to know what's going on out there, maybe it's time for you to become a cannabis educator. Go check out our free class at www.cannabiscoachinginstitute.com. You'll see how you can get paid to talk and write about cannabis so that you can spread the word about Delta 8 and everything else in the cannabis space. See you next time.
It sounded so bougie when I say I'm going to Mexico for a month.
It did sound bougie, but you're a cannabis educator. This is what cannabis educators get to do.
This is what we get to do. Yeah, I'm not going to vacation for a month. I'm going to work. I'm going to learn a lot while I'm down there. That was the point of me going to Mexico last year, was to learn about it and be able to understand what's happening when an entire country changes. And it's a very different country than Canada, right? I think we can all agree that Mexico is just a very different place. And I'm curious as to how that's going.